Sega Genesis 1991 was around that time where even Nintendo loyalists were starting to take notice. Now, Nintendo fanboys were fully aware of the Sega Genesis, and it looks cool and everything, but Nintendo was already at its peak. And then 91 rolls around with all these great games, and that's when you're like, I might want to check this out. So if you picked up a Sega Genesis in 1991 just like I did, here are some of the amazing games, and not so amazing games, you're playing on the Sega Genesis in 1991. And thank you for subscribing, I appreciate it. What do you mean you're not subscribed? Well, take care of that, would you? Aeroflash came out at the beginning of the year, an amazing shooter. Now, in my opinion, the TurboGrafx 16 may have been the best console for shooters in the 8-bit, 16-bit era, but Sega Genesis had so many amazing shooters as well. And this one was fine, nice and easy to control. You could actually kind of transform too from like flying mech to airplane, which I thought was kind of cool. I was a huge fan of Robotech growing up. So the fact that you could do this, I thought was pretty cool. And then depending on if you're an airplane or kind of the mech feature, whatever the other, form is called, you might have a different weapon crash. Like, the airplane shoots out a bunch of bullets all at once, and then your little mech character kind of just turns invincible and you can just crash into whatever you need. Aeroflash was super cool. I'm pretty sure I rented this at least once. Oh my god, Sword of Vermillion! In my top 5 favorite video games of all time, Sword of Vermillion blew my mind. I first saw this at my friend Aaron's house because he had a Genesis before I did. It took all the things I loved about video games at the time, and even things I loved about the video games I didn't like at the time. Like, I wasn't a big fan of turn-based RPGs, but it looks a little like that, but not so much when you get into the fight scenes, and you'll see that here in a second. Now, if you play this game today for the first time, it runs a little slow. And I don't mean this is running on a PAL console, I mean, like, there's no run button. It's kind of a sludge, right? Because I loved when you were out of the towns and caves and everything, it turned to this kind of first-person perspective, but you can see the map when you get the map. And then when it runs into a battle, then it turns into that kind of, you're actually hitting the button to slash your sword. Or use your magic, too. A lot to see, a lot to explore, a lot to play in this game. People who played this game for the first time may have used grid paper for the first time when they're drawing their own maps. I can't talk highly enough about Sword of Vermillion. I wish we'd have a sequel. These are only 3 games in, we already got another shooter. Well, this is Airbuster, also came out at the beginning of the year. And it's just another shooter worth talking about because they're just fun. It was during a time when bullet hells weren't the only style of shooter. I know people love bullet hells today. I don't. I mean, they look nice, but it just becomes I just want to see games that look like this. Give me that UN Squadron looking, I know I'm talking about a Super Nintendo game in a Genesis video, but just give me that style of, airplane shooter game. And Airbuster's a great one. The MiniRun I thought was interesting because instead of driving a car, you're driving a boat. They didn't have a whole lot of kind of first person, like the third person over the shoulder perspective boat games. And this one you can also like shoot the other boats. Gain Ground, a classic Genesis game. You see this pop up on a lot of those like Genesis mini consoles, Genesis collections, and I think it's pretty cool, and I think it's worth checking out, especially for 1991. Now, a lot of people don't care so much for this game. I like it though. Couple ways to win. You can either make all of your characters go through the exit or just defeat all the enemies. And there's multiple people you have, multiple players, and you can kind of pick up new players along the way too. And if you happen to die, you'll stay there, so you can still be rescued and then taken through the exit. But you do have to be taken through the exit for you to have that character playable. Tons of stages, they're all kind of these single screen style. Couple of shots you can do, you can either like shoot in front of you or lob a shot over like a hill or a bunker, something like that. Well, it'll be like, in Commando where you can either shoot in front of you or lob a grenade. Things like that with Gain Ground. I don't know, I still come back to this game every once in a while. Are we doing a shooter every other game? Well, there's so many great shooters in 91. And Musha was another one, metallic uniform, super hybrid armor. Most people know this game for the price tag, but I know this game as just being a fast action vertical shooting game. You call it a shooter. I guess you could call it a shmup if you like. Shmup is kind of a weird word. You can call it whatever you want, and call it expensive too while you're at it, although it doesn't have to be because Retrobit did those re-releases. Either way, I mean, again, this came out in 1991. There are several ways to play this game if you just want to play this game. And Musha, I think, is worth checking out. Crackdown from Sage's Creation, and don't let the Sage's Creation kind of weird logo fool you. The Sage's Creations games on the Sega Genesis were all pretty decent. And this one was kind of a fun game for its time. It reminded me a little bit of a Metal Gear, but not exactly a Metal Gear, if that makes sense. Because you have that overhead, whatever view, but you have to place your C4 explosives, I guess they're just whatever they are, explosives, on the X's on the wall, because you have to do that and then leave and then the entire place blows up. I liked how it gave you a map, and it gave you your play screen, and it also told you what enemies are there and what those enemies, how those enemies attack, so you're not surprised. But I thought that was a great idea for a game like this. Now, you can also play this game 2-player as well, so that's very, very handy. Love those 2-player Genesis games. And Crackdown, I think, is super fun. Well, there's a whole lot of Dick Tracy going on in 1991. Had the great movie. I'm a fan of the movie anyway. I didn't really read the comics or anything like that. But I liked Dick Tracy because you had your 3 buttons, which meant you had your 3 options. Here you can jump, you can shoot in front of you, and then the other button shoots into the background. So you got your Tommy gun, when there are things in the background, you can, you know, windows shatter and stuff like that too. I thought that was a fun idea to have that other thing to look out for. I also liked the fact that with Dick Tracy, like the NES version was completely different than the Sega Genesis version. You know, a lot of times during this time, it'd be one game for multiple consoles and they'd kind of all be the same kind of. Now, they're completely different on this one. Flicky looks like a game made for toddlers. It is not. A lot like Mappy, Flicky just has that look that makes you say like, oh, this is for kids, but no. No, it's a lot tougher than that. I think it is anyway. Maybe you don't think so. You're the bluebird, and you have to get all the baby yellow birds through the door. You can either do it one by one, or get a big old trail of them, a tail of them, and yeah, that's how you can rack up the points, by, you know, dropping them all off all at the same time. And there's other cats in the way. Of course, it's cats when you're dealing with birds, and you have to, you know, kind of take care of them along the way too. It does scroll left and right, but as you can probably tell and see that the screen scrolls left and right, but it's really kind of the same screen, if that makes sense. Well, James Pond came out, and I wanted to mention this game super briefly because this came out early 91, and keep that in mind. This first James Pond game, not great. Throwing it out there. Junction was a puzzle game that was like, when you see that, you're like, oh god, it's another one of these. You know what I'm saying? I think it's fine. I don't mind these style of games. I honestly don't mind these style of games, but it always gets to the point where it's like, I got this. I'm great at tile sliding games. And then I totally don't got this. But, yeah. I remember seeing this for rent a lot, and I think I checked it out once, but I was just like, nah, alright. But it did come out in 91, so I thought I'd bring it up. M1 Abrams Battle Tank was a game I was exceedingly excited to check out. Oddly enough, because I'm not into war, I'm not into tanks, I've never been into battlement and strategy and stuff like that, but I just liked how this game looked for the time. Because this is 1991. Now, if you played the game Draken for the Super Nintendo, it looks a little like that, but on a Sega Genesis, and the Sega Genesis is not known for scrolling techniques, you know what I mean? But it was about as good of a first-person, like battle tank style game as I could get for the time. And I loved Battle Tank in the arcade. We certainly didn't have VR back then. But I liked this game quite a bit. I mean, just for being what it was, I thought it was fine. Wardner was a game I was confused by the title because I knew this game as Pyros in the arcade. I think it's called Pyros in the arcade, right? The same game. They call it whatever you want. It's the same game, and it was an arcade game I really, really liked. Platformer, you shoot fireballs, but they kind of go down at an arc, so you have to, keep that in mind when you're attacking these enemies here. It's a fine platformer. It gets like ridiculously hard near the near the end of the game, but still had a lot of fun with this game, and it plays great on the Sega Genesis. It really does. I will never not talk about Bonanza Brothers. You play the bad guy, 2 players simultaneous if you'd like. You have to collect all the items by avoiding the police officers. It looks cartoony, but you just go through these stages and collect all the items and move your way to the exit, and you can go on from there. Better as a 2-player, but fun to see. And it came out in 1991. Midnight Resistance, well, we didn't have Contra Hardcore yet, so this game from Data East was basically our Contra game for the Sega Genesis. Not as smooth, it is pretty choppy, but it still plays pretty well. If you can get over the choppiness of the game, which isn't terrible, but looking at it now, it's probably pretty terrible. It could have been better, and it's still fun. Midnight Resistance, might want to check it out. Shadow Dancer was a new Shinobi game, and Shinobi was one of the staple Sega games for the time, but this game featured a dog. Or a wolf? I think it's a dog. Still plays like Shinobi, so if you're into the Shinobi games, perfect, and then the gimmick behind this game is you can also send your dog out to keep the guys in place, so then you can do your thing to get rid of those guys. And of course, you're doing the rescue, the kidnapped, and whatever. If your dog is attacked, it turns into a little puppy, which I thought was cute. Shadow Dancer is super, super cool. Right, so you hear Sonic the Hedgehog? This game blew my mind when I first saw it. I don't need to talk a lot about Sonic the Hedgehog, honestly. But when I bought my Sega Genesis, because I was planning on buying one anyway, I was saving up for one. By the time I could purchase a Sega Genesis in 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog was the pack-in. Sega could have said, this is the new game, you're gonna love it. But instead of that, they said, you know what, it's gonna come free if you now buy a Sega Genesis. And it worked. Sega said, you know what, this is gonna be our new mascot, we're putting all of our money into it, and it worked. Batman from Sunsoft, different from the NES version. And again, with the Batman games, they're either really, really good or really, really not. And I think this Batman game's totally decent. I think this Batman game is a lot of fun. It's just fun enough and just difficult enough that if you play it enough, then you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You got your batarangs, you also have your grappling hook for those later stages and everything. Got some boss battles. It's Batman. You can't go wrong. It's Batman. Well, you can go wrong, but still. Alien Storm was a great idea for me. I was a huge fan of this style of beat 'em up, but it wasn't just a beat 'em up because each of the three characters had their own weaponry to defeat these aliens. And I just thought it was kind of cool and creative and weird, kind of gross sometimes. What these aliens looked like. You got your, multiple, instead of multiple hit combos, it's multiple weapon combos. You can also roll and dash and use your weapon crash if you'd like. Sometimes you go inside these buildings and it turns into a different style of game, kind of like an Operation Wolf style, shooting all the other guys and stuff like that. So, Alien Storm, I'm a huge fan. And I love the fact if you play as the robot and do the weapon crash, you blow up, but then your secondary body comes out and screws your head back on. And I thought that was amazing, and we'll see it one more time. Phantasy Star 3 was a game a lot of Phantasy Star fanatics were looking forward to, and I think it was well received. I remember this game being well received. Certainly looks neat. I've always loved the soundtrack to the Phantasy Star games. I've never personally gotten into them because, man, they are an epic adventure that you have to use your entire life, and I mean in real life. You have to just use up and focus on this one game for so long. I just could never get into them, but I understand the appeal. Well, we had Batman earlier, so now we have SpiderMan. I know it's two different universes and two different companies completely. I could have swore this game came out earlier than 91, but here we are. I was a big fan of Spider-Man, always have been since I was a kid. I used to have Spider-Man underoos, and this game, you have your, of course your attack power and stuff like that, but you can also, grab onto the walls. You can, use your web in different ways, either by swinging or by, capturing the enemy, or you web them up, yeah, whatever. Features a ton of the classic Spider-Man villains in this game. It's a very neat game, especially for the Sega Genesis. Remember earlier when we talked about James Pond briefly? Well, the same year they came out with James Pond 2. They were not waiting for the sequel. Here's the thing though, the first James Pond, whatever. James Pond 2, I gotta tell you, I really liked this game. I played it all the way through. I rented it, beat it that weekend, and I don't know what it is. I mean, it is that European style. You can tell just by the excessive shading and how everything's like animated. But I was just drawn to this game for no reason. But I just love this game. And even capturing this footage here just briefly, I was just like, oh, this is kind of fun. I might have to go through this game. Maybe I'll stream it on Twitch or something. Pretty cool opening here with Fatal Labyrinth. It was one of the first games I remember hearing about that was just completely randomly generated every time you played it. And my brain still couldn't wrap its head around how it's like, how is it different every time you play it? The rooms are different, the hallways are different, the enemies might randomly show up differently, where the items show up and stuff like that. So it's like, you can get one game and play it forever. And it'll be different every time you play it. I thought that was such a fun idea for a video game. Now, there's lots of games that are like that, but this was one of the first ones I remember doing that. Now, I do wish you had the ability to attack with your own sword button. It's one of those games where you just have to walk into them and then they hit you, you hit them, they hit you, you hit them. I'd rather just run and dash and whatever. But another pretty cool and kind of similar opening with our next game. And this game is Arcus Odyssey. This was a game, came out in 1991. It was a game I didn't play till later in life. I didn't have it, none of my friends had it, and my local video stores that rented Sega Genesis games did not have it. If they did, I would have checked it out, because I remember seeing it in magazines and thinking to myself, oh my god, this game looks completely awesome. So then it wasn't until later, when I finally found a copy used or whatever it was, where I said to myself, oh my god, this game's amazing. it was everything I was looking for in a video game. And what a fun, fun, fun game. Arcus Odyssey is one you should check out if you, like me, didn't grow up with it. Jewel Master is another game I can't recommend enough. Pretty difficult near the beginning, but once you get some more rings, it certainly, you know, helps you out on your quest. The gimmick behind this game, now you look at it, you know, it's like, okay, it's like, you know, any other style of game, whatever, a little generic, I guess, with the graphics and all that. Not terrible, but, you know, not the best we've seen so far. But the gimmick is you have these rings, and, you know, by nature of what rings you're wearing, you'll use those items. So you can have a fire thing, you can have a protection, whatever, wall, something or other. But then later on, you might get another ring, and that's when you can combine powers. So now you can have this, and you can have, you know, whatever that says. Or you can put on the other ring where the fire is, and you can throw out fireballs. And imagine the other rings you'll find later in this game. That's the draw, and to me the fun of this game is, never mind beating the levels, what happens when I combine these two rings? What power do I get? That's to me was the fun part of this game, and it still is. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think there's anybody on this planet who likes Decap Attack more than I do. And I don't know why. I love the music, I love the creepy vibe, I love the spookiness. And here's the thing, I'm not even the biggest fan of Kid Cool or Psycho Fox, you know, because it plays like that style of game. Kind of slippery mechanics. You can pick up you know, the alternative thing that you can also throw. In this game, it's your head. Yeah, that's right. You can find a skeleton head that you can chuck at other enemies and stuff like that. But I don't know what it is. But I love the colors. I love the music. I just love everything about this game. Huge levels. You know, great level design in my opinion. And it's just a fun game. You're making your way. You know, there's so many worlds, so many stages. I think it's like 3 stages per world. There's a lot of worlds. There's other items you can pick up, like potions that you can use that might freeze time or might, you know, defeat enemies on screen, stuff like that. It's just fun. I love this game. I love it. I love it. Road Rash, there have been other variations of Road Rash along the way. The first time I ever played it was this one right here on the Sega Genesis. And I loved the idea of a racing game that you can also beat people up. I mean, what's not to love about that? You're driving along. You're right next to them anyway. Why wouldn't you just, you know, kind of politely kick them over or something like that? Well, that's what Road Rash is all about, and that's what I loved about this game. And don't worry about it too, you can also get knocked over. The fun thing is, it's not fun. The fun thing is, if you get knocked over, you do your little spill and slide and tumble, and then you have to run all the way back to your bike. And in doing so, there's also other bikes on the road that might get you again. That's always fun. The first Streets of Rage came out in 1991. Again, I would have thought this would have come out earlier, but I guess I'm wrong. I mean, I know I'm wrong because this game definitely came out in 1991. It said so right on the title screen. It's the one that started a new craze. There's always been the argument, you know, is Streets of Rage better? Is Final Fight better? Shouldn't be an argument because Streets of Rage is definitely better. Final Fight's fine, but Streets of Rage, you know, and Final Fight doesn't have the Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack, so there you go. Anyway, Streets of Rage is great. We saw Marvel Land. I loved the Namco games on the Sega Genesis. That might be another video later, because the Namco games on Sega Genesis were their own thing, because a lot of times when a game came out from Namco, it was mostly a arcade port. And this game was just its own fun, kind of platformy, very colorful, that you would expect from Namco, featuring a new character that I've only seen in this game. I mean, maybe this character exists in other games, but not that I'm aware of. Yeah, Marvel Land was a fun idea for a game, and it was just a nice, you know, a little bit of a breath of fresh air, because a lot of Genesis games were really gritty in their design and in their look. No, I don't mean all of them, because, you know, of course we have like Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff like that, but yeah, something like this, it was fun to see. It's fun to see them doing something like this on the Genesis. Mechs was definitely a must-play as well. Great in the arcade, fun here too. I think they kind of build this as the sequel to Commando, or the pseudo-sequel to Commando, also from Capcom, but just way better. Oh, super, super fun. Love me some Mechs. You can tell just by the gameplay style what kind of game it is. It's that. And it's awesome, and it's worth checking out. Check out Mechs. In the same year we had Sonic the Hedgehog, we also had Jam and Earl. Now, if this came out first, I have a feeling Jam and Earl would have been the co-mascots for Sega. But here we have Jam and Earl. It's a game that a lot of people really liked, a lot of people gravitated to. I remember back then liking this game, but don't know why. I remember playing this game a lot, and not sure why, because it's not like, you know, it's, I don't know, like, I can't place my finger on it. This game is missing something, and I think what that thing is missing is an element of video game. I don't know. This game's missing something for me, and I don't know what it. I don't know if it's just the controls or the fact that I was expecting more enemies for you to attack. But it's such a game where you're just kind of strolling along and just kind of grooving, I guess. I don't know. That came out anyway. Hey, what about Growl? Another great beat 'em up with a twist ending. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but the ending surprised me. I was like, I didn't see that coming. Anyway, what a great message too. This game is, you're beating people up. That's the message. But who you're beating up are the poachers. So that makes it okay, right? Save the animal, but never mind your face. I'm gonna save the animals, but here, let me shoot you in the face. Because you're treating these animals wrong. Nothing wrong with that at all. And just especially when you see this scene, you're like, oh, come on, I can't wait to get my hands on you. Grapple is a great game. I love me some Growl. Might want to check it out. Vapor Trail. Well, it's been a while since we've had a shooter in this game, and here's Vapor Trail. And again, just a very fun overhead shooter, and it's one of those kind of like those 1943 style games where like the more you pick up, the more bullets you can just like wave across the screen. It makes you almost invincible, it seems like sometimes. Beast Wrestler. Well, I had to check out Beast Wrestler because it has the word wrestler right in the title. It's a wrestling game, but you play as these kind of mythical creatures. That's fine by me. Now, not a great wrestling game, unfortunately. However, it was a wrestling game, kind of. And still fun to see what the creatures could do. They couldn't do much, but they could do a little. We had Caliber 50. Caliber 50, in my opinion, would have been great if I could have just fired in the direction I was looking. But when you have these games where you can pivot and spin around, just like that other flying game was, Forgotten Worlds, where one button rotates you to the right, one button rotates you to the left, and then the other button is shoot. Sometimes it gets a little confusing because there's a person right next to you and you want to turn around and shoot them, but you have to hold the button down until you're facing them and then shoot them that way. This game can be fun, and you do kind of get used to it. I just wish I had that option too.
Welcome to the Fight Palace.
Oh boy. I remember seeing this game mostly in magazines because this is the kind of game that would be advertised in magazines. Slaughter Sport, the name of this game. It's supposed to be a 2D fighter. For me, it's more of a game where I turn my back to the guy so he can punch and attack me in the back of the head. That's how I play this game anyway, because I don't know how to play this game otherwise. Every time I've tried to play this, I can never turn around in time. They always just end up, slaughtering me, I suppose. And maybe you got that game for Christmas, because it was one of the last games released in 1991. 1992 may be the most epic year for Sega Genesis, but we'll cover that in another video soon. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it when we post it. And who's we? I'm the one who does everything. I do the filming, I capture my own footage, but you're watching it, so that makes you involved as well. Thank you!